XRP and the Japanese reverse carry trade is here. And during today's episode, we're going to show you all a brand new analysis out of Jake Claver, expanding on the impact that we could see from the Japanese treasury bonds reaching an all-time high. We are now seeing levels that we haven't tested since the early 2000s. And with the Japanese unwind already taking place, we are waiting for the cascading effect into the XRP price chart. We're also going to break down the timeline for these matters, as many had anticipated that this unwind would take place in 2025. New predictions and analysts are showing that the timeline has been extended until March of 2026. Now, this is coming out of an AI report that we're going to break down later on in the episode, but one thing is absolutely clear: the trillions of dollars that have been lended are being recalled. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Good Evening Crypto, your favorite crypto news related channel. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button. It's a great way to support the brand new channel. And we're going to dive right into the content that we have prepared for you guys, starting off with the Jake Claver statements right here. Now, Jake, he is more confident than ever that 2026 is going to be an optimistic and exciting year for the XRP community. And it starts off with an oil spike and the Japanese unwind that we're all waiting for today. Now, as you guys saw in our initial analysis, the 10-year Japanese treasury bond is reaching the highest levels we've seen since the early 2000s. And why does this matter? Because all of the free money that was borrowed from 2015 until 2020 is now being called back into the Japanese economy today. And that's the major catalyst that Jake Claver has been able to draw a lot of attention to. Here's what he had to say about how close this impact could be and what it could mean for XRP.
Look, and I've said this lots of times, I am extremely confident that you see a significant jump in XRP's price this year to 3 digits. I wouldn't come on here and say it if I wasn't. I wouldn't say that I'm 99.99999% sure if I really wasn't. Now, it requires catalysts. And with the seizing of the oil tanker today, with everything that is transpiring, with all of these situations that are taking place with the CFTC and the OCC and all of the regulators running toward this asset class to be able to use it, I'm highly confident, again, that we are going to see at least the settlement, maybe some swift adoption, maybe the back end of the stock market, but you're going to have enough liquidity in the asset. We are going to have to see a huge rotation of volume into XRP through the ETFs. We got 21 shares going live tomorrow. We also have 2 other ETFs that I'll speculate on. You got Truth Social, which has a 19% allocation to XRP. And you have BlackRock that filed their BlackRock ETF, just BlackRock ETF. And they haven't filed the S1 to show what's in it yet. But they filed, and is it either an 8A or an 8A8? I'm not sure which order those numbers are in, but it's a filing basically stating that they're going to file for that BlackRock ETF. I'm going to speculate that the BlackRock ETF that doesn't say anything about XRP in the name is going to be predominantly XRP. And if that is the case, then that is going to be the catalyst for the big move into XRP. We got Vanguard offering these ETFs to their clients here recently. It's all culminating for the end of the year for everybody to have a very, very fun Christmas. But there's just so many things that are going to be changing here over the next, like 2026, I am so bullish on. Like, I cannot explain to you how bullish I am. I'm still bullish on 2025. I know people are gonna be like, oh, you said it's next year. I thought you're pivoting, you're waiting. No, I am super bullish on the last 3 weeks of this year. We have 25 days till the end of 2025, and I've got bets on the line, and I'm not backing down. I'm not sweating. I am not concerned about it. So, there's always haters out there, and that's fine. But I'm here. I'm still buying every day. I put my money where my mouth is. There has to be some real events that play out between now and the end of the year for that to actually transpire. We've talked about the reverse carry trade. We've talked about the back end tokenization of the stock market. We've talked about the ETFs coming live for XRP. We've talked about stablecoin regulation. The way that this happens, I put out a video 18 months ago explaining exactly how XRP would get to 4 digits through supply and demand dynamics. And all of that is culminated. Like, I have been spot on about ETFs, stablecoin bill, and many of the other things that I talked about in the original video have already come to pass. I'm highly confident that we're going to see oil skyrocket here at the end of 2025. We have multiple global macroeconomic situations that could transpire and cause that to happen. And if Strait of Hormuz gets shut down, which is what I think is most likely, because that's what Jim Rickards talked about in his confidential meetings with the U.S. government in 2014, more than a decade ago. That's how they would orchestrate this crisis, and they would basically have a scapegoat for the central banks to be able to roll through the reverse carry trade and have all this unwind and be able to use XRP. You never let a good crisis go to waste.
And we've heard that time and time again, not just in regards to the crypto market, Johnny, but in regards to some of the smartest investors in the history of the United States economy. I'd love to hear from our listeners. Do you believe that many of the predictions that Jake is outlining will come to fruition? One's for yes, two's for no. Well, Johnny, I'm going to kick it over to you, but I just wanted to analyze exactly what's happening in Japan today because it plays exactly into what Jake had to say. As these catalysts begin to unwind, the major one that we're waiting for is for the XRP ledger to be tapped as a liquidity solution inside the United States. Well, Japan just did something the entire world swore would never happen again. Take a good look at this chart. After 2 full decades of near zero rates and endless quantitative easing, after the Bank of Japan spent years holding yields down with unlimited bond buying, Japan's 10-year bond is now at 2%. This isn't just another move. This is a complete regime shift. And here's why this matters more than people think. Japan is the world's largest creditor nation. They own trillions of dollars worth of foreign assets, including U.S. treasuries. And when Japanese yields rise, the math changes instantaneously. Japan investors no longer need U.S. bonds for yield, and capital can flow back into the Japanese economy. The treasury demand inside the United States falls, and this leads to a U.S. yield falling as well. Liquidity tightens globally, and this is how the markets break quietly, then all at once. For 20 years, Japan kept the global borrowing costs artificially low, and that era is officially over. If the yields keep climbing from here, we're not just talking about Japan having a problem. We're talking about a shockwave that hits U.S. equities, emerging markets, housing, corporate debt, and of course, cryptocurrency. Everything priced off global liquidity. Japan was the pressure valve. Now that valve is blowing off the machine, most people are scrolling today and will ignore this chart. But here on Good Evening Crypto, we're going to draw this information to your attention. And if you enjoy this content, smash that like button and let us know your thoughts. This is something everybody needs to be aware of, Johnny, because when the house of cards falls, XRP may be the solution.
Yeah, Abs, this is something that's very interesting because there's been talk about this thing going on for like 20 years. This whole thing, free money. And at some point, it's going to come to an end and unwind. And the funny thing is, when you look at the chart, for me, one of the things I always struggle with is it's not like it's happened yesterday. I mean, you look at the chart, it's been 5 years in the making since we've been creeping all the way back up to where we were in 2005. So the reality is a good portion of this, I think, has already been baked in the market. We've seen a big hit in August of 2024. Markets kind of saw that the rates were continuing to go up and they priced some of that in. But where the real risk still is today is while it's been partially unwound already, it's not fully unwound. And a lot of these players who have been leveraging, and making money off this carry trade apps, unfortunately, they leverage their money. And so if this thing does, if we get a massive spike increase or a surprise by the Bank of Japan where they just continue to raise and we start going down more in our rates, you could see this thing kind of come to a head and have one more last boom, right? And in the market. And what I think that means is, tying this back to what Jake is saying, if that were to happen and it were to be that kind of crazy thing where now Japan wants all their money back and the world has to liquidate, that causes a liquidity crisis. And in that situation, well, what do you do? How do you solve for that, right? And the Nostra Vostra accounts maybe get tapped out. Well, one solution ultimately could be XRP because its ability to be able to provide liquidity when Japan's calling that money back, they could get it back much faster. So, there is some credibility here that obviously this could happen. And if it does, then yeah, you would certainly expect to see some appreciation in the price of XRP. Again, we'll have to wait to see how the whole thing plays out. But there certainly is some credibility, I think, in this space, what we normally see, like we saw in 97, 98, 99, master speculative run on the internet. And then, of course, utility run 5 to 10 years later. I'm really hoping we're going to see more of that kind of evolution in this space than the Jake theory play out. If the Jake theory plays out, I think we see a higher price, but maybe not such a great place to live, versus the other alternative where it's more of a slower, gradual increase, but everybody's living a good life and very happy.
Well, it's not like we need the reverse carry trade to play out in order for XRP to increase in value, but this could be the icing on the cake that really pushes us to levels we haven't seen before. And I'm sure people out there are saying, Abs, Johnny, why would they choose XRP? Well, I'm going to give you the reasons here right now. Number one is that XRP offers rapid 3 to 5 second cross-border settlement faster than any other technology with regulatory clarity today. Now, when you look at what's happening inside the United States, Johnny, it's absolutely clear. Ethereum and Bitcoin, they have the free pass as well, but they do not have the scaling capabilities of the XRP ledger, so they could not be tapped as a liquidity solution. This is also going to reduce transaction costs and free up liquidity by eliminating the pre-funded Nostro Vostro accounts. And you would just reference that. There is over $20 trillion today locked globally around the world in Nostro Vostro accounts. And what that means is that if I'm sending $1 million from New York to London, there needs to be $1 million in both locations. Using the XRP ledger, you can now only have money in the receiving account. Very exciting, frees up half the global liquidity in the banking system today. Point number 3, Japan's established real partnerships with Ripple and supports the XRP's infrastructure inside of their country. Regulatory alignment in Japan also coincides with this, including tokenized economy initiatives, enhancing the XRP's compliance and suitability for this liquidity crisis. And the final thing, adoption, it depends on broader institutional and regulatory acceptance. If there was a liquidity wave, they would need to select XRP. Guys, I'm going to come to you once again. Do you believe Japan is going to tap the XRP ledger as a liquidity solution? Let us know. Smash that like button. Now, we're going to play this analysis right here, outlining the timeline for the reverse carry trade. Here it is.
Jake Claver keeps mentioning the reverse carry trade as the main domino for his price prediction of XRP by year end. So I asked Grok AI to estimate when the reverse carry trade would unwind, and this is the answer I got. Based on current trajectories, I predict a disorderly unwind accelerating in Q1 of 2026 with the implosion, that is the rapid self-reinforcing liquidation, peaking around March of 2026. I believe Jake is just a little early, but Q1 of 2026 seems to be the logical timeline. That being said, I believe the XRP price change is going to be centered around something much more obvious, and that would be the Clarity Act. I know many are saying XRP doesn't need the Clarity Act for adoption because XRP is not classified as a security. However, I think they're missing one important point. Financial institutions are not going to adopt XRP without the full legal regulation and clarity. Therefore, the I's and T's must be dotted and crossed before institutional adoption begins.
And just to expand on this, Johnny, the analogy that works perfectly here is XRP is the vehicle. The vehicle has been built, it's been established, it's ready to drive on the road, but it's unable to drive on the road because there's no rules and regulations. We don't know the speed limit. We don't know if it's registered. We don't know if we need a license plate. Once all of those questions are answered, you're going to see XRP vehicles all across the road, and that starts after the Clarity Act. But let's continue.
We should see a massive move in price going forward. I've also heard from seemingly reliable sources that institutional accumulation and testing has been going on for months via private ledgers. This makes sense because these institutions are not going to adopt something as new as XRP without testing it first. I've also heard that the testing price on the private ledgers is multiples higher than even the most optimistic predictions so far. If this is all true, I think we can see an actual flip of the switch moment when XRP moves from the private ledger to the public ledger, and that price may blow the socks off of most current holders.
And nobody knows the future here, Johnny, but what we do know is that these catalysts will have an impact on the XRP price because it's going to increase the demand with the existing supply. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts.
The Clarity Act really is the linchpin for all of this. Just because the XRP has its clarity from the SEC, it doesn't mean the whole industry is cleared. And they're not going to invest in one piece, a little tiny piece of the industry. They're going to wait for the whole thing. So the Clarity Act, to me, is totally 100%. I could not agree more that we still need that. That is going to be, I think, the moment that's when it signals to the world, to the financial institutions and to the big corporations, that now it's time to play. And at that point thereafter, then we start to see money flood in. Now, will it happen the next day? I don't think so. I think it's going to take some time, just like it took in 96. Telecom Act came in 96. The money came in 97. I don't know exactly when. It wasn't a whole year, but the point being is I'm expecting a similar thing. This year, we get the Clarity Act in 2026, I mean, and then we start to see the money start coming into the space, because now, as you beautifully pointed out, the rules of the road will be written. We'll know how to drive the car. We'll know when it's registered and what its license plate is and how many numbers on the plate, so that everything can operate beautifully and efficiently. And then we start to see these things happen. So to me, that is the linchpin. The unwinding of the trade, again, we talked about that. If that does happen sometime in that March timeframe, and we get the Clarity Act as well, I mean, you could be talking about several different catalysts happening at the same time. And then all of a sudden there's a liquidity crisis, and like, oh, we need money. Where do we get it? Well, we'll take it from the Nostro Vostro. Well, we can't, because we need that for liquidity. Well, how do we solve that? Enter XRP. Well, if you use XRP, now you don't need those Nostro Vostro accounts sitting there, and that money can go to solve a liquidity crisis. So to me, you could see that's how the whole thing would have to play out. And if it does, yeah, I certainly think we'll see a price appreciation. XRP, no doubt about it.
Well, one thing's absolutely clear, guys. It's a really unique time to be an XRP investor, and there's a lot of exciting catalysts on the horizon. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all in the next one. So if you're looking to do the same strategies that we implement here on Good Evening Crypto, I would advise everybody sign up for Merlin and click on the ITrust Capital link below. Now, why did these two ideas play off one another? Merlin is going to allow our listeners to understand where they should be taking profit in this market, and ITrust is going to allow our listeners to take that profit tax-free through an IRA product. Now, that's not the best part about this. We are giving new clients a $100 sign-up bonus using the promo code GEC9. So I would encourage everybody, click on the link below the video, use promo code GEC9, and set yourself up for success during this crypto bull market.